Across Philadelphia, we see his name. Evidence of one of America's greatest fortunes made here. But the story of Stephen Girard begins a world away in 1750.
Stephen Girard was the oldest of 14 children. He grew up in a small, cramped house, and he had a lot of responsibilities imposed on him from an early age.
He was the son of a merchant shipper out of Bordeaux, France, named Pierre Girard. By all accounts, they had a difficult relationship. Pierre was a distant and difficult man.
He left Bordeaux at the age of 14, finding a purpose aboard merchant ships. A decade later, in June of 1776, Girard was headed for New York Harbor when a British blockade diverted his ship to Philadelphia, then the center of the Atlantic world, on the eve of revolution.
You look up and down the wharves and docks, and it's nothing but a forest of ships. And Girard gets a piece of this very, very quickly. Soon he owns 10 ships of his own. He's trading to the West Indies, to South America, and making a beachhead for American commerce in China.
During this period, Girard's greatest export was probably flour from the Pennsylvania backcountry. He was importing a lot of French wines, tea from China, and a lot of coffee from the French Caribbean.
He wanted his captains to stop in every available port, do as much business in each port as they could, make as much money in every port as they could.
He would sometimes lose on those bargains, but increasingly towards the later 1790s and early 19th century, he would make major gains.
Many of Girard's trading partners lived on the French colony of Saint-Domingue, modern-day Haiti. In 1793, as his partners were threatened by intensifying war and revolution, Girard used his ships to take them off Saint-Domingue and bring them to Philadelphia. Could it be that one of his refugees would provide the deadly seed of an epidemic?
It is quite plausible that one of the refugees was carrying yellow fever and on arriving in Philadelphia in that hot summer of 1793 was bitten by a mosquito. That mosquito goes on to bite someone in Philadelphia and an epidemic begins to spread.
Dozens, hundreds of people are dying everywhere. You got thousands more fleeing the city. The city was falling apart.
The president left town, Congress left town, anybody who could leave town left town to avoid the yellow fever.
But Girard stayed. Mayor Matthew Clarkson knew of Girard's experience with yellow fever in Haiti and asked him to take control of a new hospital established specifically for yellow fever victims, located on the Hamilton family estate at Bush Hill.
Bush Hill was a big, elegant house at today's 18th and Spring Garden Streets, and that was, at that time, the outskirts of town. There are people dead and dying in every room of the house. It is a scene of utter urban devastation.
Girard hired a French doctor, Jean Devizet, and used his resources and characteristic efficiency to improve the survival rates of Bush Hill patients, even as the fever claimed the lives of over 5,000 Philadelphians.
This isn't the first time that he has put his private money to a public use. He was one of the major investors in the First Bank of the United States, and we know that that was crucial for this young American economy to actually grow and expand and to become stable.
But stability would not last. In 1812, war with Great Britain threatened to ruin the young nation's economy.
The First National Bank by this point had failed. There was no money in the Treasury. It looked very much like the United States could go bankrupt and lose a war at the same time.
The Secretary of Treasury came to visit Stephen Girard and asked him to help finance the War of 1812, which of course he did personally and through the aid of a couple of his friends. It's probably the last war in the history of this country that was privately financed.
His shipping business made him one of the wealthiest men in the United States, and Girard focused his largesse on his adopted city.
In his 40 years in Philadelphia, Girard sees that no one has tried to improve the city's waterfront. And in his unique Girard way, he decides that he can do it.
Stephen Girard literally invented Delaware Avenue. His investments in coal land and in railroads and in infrastructure on Delaware Avenue were all designed to create a vertically integrated connection within the control of his business empire.
Despite his commercial success, Girard struggled with personal relationships. Born with a deformed right eye, he was self-conscious about his appearance. Shortly after his arrival in Philadelphia, Girard fell in love with Mary Lum, the beautiful daughter of a shipbuilder. However, after 8 years, their marriage began to fail.
Mary supposedly started acting out. Stephen claimed she was crazy, had her see doctors, and she was eventually committed to Pennsylvania Hospital.
Stephen Girard did not remarry and had no children. After the War of 1812, he took over the offices of the old National Bank on 3rd Street. In 1830, while crossing the street, Girard was struck by a horse and wagon, with the horse's hoof landing on his left eye. Now both of his eyes are disabled. Despite the accident, Girard walked home and continued to run his business. However, 1 year later, he succumbed to his injuries and died at the age of 81.
Girard's estate turns out to be the 4th largest in American history. He has some very, very specific ideas about how he wants it spent.
In his will, Girard laid out a new vision, a first-class school for orphaned boys, to be built on the meadows just north of the old city. Girard College would be designed by the distinguished Philadelphia architect Thomas Yustick Walter, who would later design the dome of the United States Capitol. The school's mission: to ingrain the highest moral standards in its students while steering clear of religious doctrine.
The college is a testament to where he came from. He did not start off with much, but he put himself out there to learn as much as he could, and he wanted to provide that opportunity for other children.
Rather than using America's largest fortune to set up an elite university like Harvard or Yale, he's going to use that fortune to set up a school for young boys in need.
However, Stephen Girard's will mandated that the school only admit white boys. More than a century later, after a long struggle in the courts and on the streets, the school opened its gates to all boys in 1968 and to all girls in 1984. Girard's remains rest in a sarcophagus on the campus at Founders Hall. Centuries later, his vision still echoes in the halls of Girard College and in the streets of his city.